All right, guys, this is Unit 2, Notes 1 for Algebra. We're going to start by writing the date at the top. So today is 12/2 of 19. And we want to start with our I will be able to statement. So for this week, we're still working on RRU, which is proportions. So we're going to continue working on I will be able to apply and solve problems of proportional relationships using rates, ratios, and proportions. Go ahead and take 10 more seconds to finish writing that down. I will be able to apply and solve problems of proportional relationships using rates, ratios, and proportions. Let's look at example number 1. So my first step says to annotate the question, which I should do on any type of problem that is not just giving me an equation, right? So example 1 says a swimming pool requires a ratio of gallons of chlorine to gallons of muriatic acid of 3:2. So I already know I'm looking at a ratio, so I'm going to put a little star by that. And I want gallons of chlorine. Chlorine's my first. Gallons of muriatic acid. So I'm actually going to search muriatic acid and chlorine because that's what my units will be in my label. And then I'm also looking at a specific ratio of 3:2. So I'm actually just going to start by writing that down. So 3 is my gallons of chlorine. So I'm just going to put a C. 2, using my colon. And then I've got 2, which is my gallons of muriatic acid. So I'm just going to use an M for muriatic acid. And then the question says, how many gallons of chlorine? So I'm looking for a result of chlorine. So when I don't know something, I use an X. So gallons of chlorine, I'm just going to put a little X next to that so that I remember. Should go into the pool if you are putting a total of 20 gallons of chemicals into the pool. So I'm going to put total of 20 gallons. Now, total, I know in my head it's 20 gallons of chemicals. So that is saying my total of gallons is going to include chlorine and muriatic acid. So on the side, I'm just going to write total equals C and M together. Okay, so let's start. We've annotated my question. Now let's make a blank proportion with what I know. So I'm going to draw my fraction bars to make 2 equivalent ratios. And I'm actually going to start this proportion not by putting in what I know, but what I don't know first. So what I don't know is how many gallons of chlorine. That's what I'm using with an X. So how many gallons of chlorine, I'm going to put an X on top here because that's where I want it to go. And then it's chlorine, so I'm going to label it with a C. Since I've now said that this is chlorine, let's write it out. I know that this label has to match on the right, so I'm also going to write chlorine on my right-hand side. Okay, it says how many gallons of chlorine for 20 total gallons. So X gallons of chlorine, 4, this bar can be read as 4, right, for 20 gallons of chemicals. Now my label here is not going to be chlorine or muriatic acid. Instead, I'm going to use total. So if I'm using total here on the left bottom, I know that this label needs to also be on the right bottom. So I'm going to use total on the right bottom. Now I can fill in what I know. So I don't know how many gallons of chlorine for 20 gallons total chemicals, but I do know that the ratio of gallons to chlorine and muriatic acid is 3:2. So my chlorine here is 3. Now the total on the bottom, if I were to fill out this ratio as 3:2, that would be incorrect because 2 is not my total. 2 is just the muriatic. Remember, we've decided that total is combined chlorine and muriatic acid. So the number I would put on the bottom here to match is not 3 or 2, but both. So what is the combined value of 3 plus 2? 5. That's not my total. I'm going to solve by drawing a line through my equal sign. And I want to get x by itself. So in order to solve, x is being divided by 20, so I'm going to multiply by 20 on both sides. So multiply by 20 on the right, and I'm going to multiply by 20 on the left. How do I multiply fractions straight across? So 20 times x is 20x. 20 times 1 is 20. Equals, drop it down on the right, in the middle. You knew what I meant. 3 times 20 is 60. 5 times 1 is 5. Now on the left side, I have 20 divided by 20. I can get rid of that because that equals 1. So now I have x equals 60 divided by 5, which is 12, and x equals 12. Now the value associated with x, 12 is, if I go back to my proportion, I can see that x is chlorine, so I'm going to write 12 gallons of chlorine. That needs to be part of my answer as well. So 12 gallons of chlorine. So again, my ratio on this left side is x over 20 because that's my total. Then 3 over 5 because again, my 5 is my total of the 3 plus 2.